Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, the Lions did win. I suppose that was kind of expected. I wanted to go back and kind of do a little bit of a recap. The NFC North is shaping up to be a little bit of a tight race. Again, we'll see what happens when the time comes. But the worst two teams in the division right now, according to the record, are the Packers and Bears, who are both sitting at 2-2. I believe it is the case that is the number one division in the NFL right now as far as total wins. The AFC West is pretty close with 10. The Packers have 11, or the NFC North has 11. In fact, the NFC North and the AFC West are the only divisions that don't have a team with less than 2 wins. So the Broncos, Chargers, Packers, and Bears are all at the bottom of their respective divisions with 2 wins. The only team left with 0 wins is the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is, again, just contributes to the weirdest thing. It's not that I thought Jacksonville was a great team, but they're at least a mediocre team. The fact that we've got the Patriots have a win, the Colts somehow have 2 wins, the Titans have the Jaguars are in the worst division in football. They're losing it. The Raiders and Broncos have 2 wins. The Panthers have a win. The Giants have a win, but not the Jaguars. Not the freaking Jaguars. Jeez. Anyways, looking forward, I mean, obviously it just matters how things end, but just in the coming weeks here, Minnesota Vikings sit at 4-0. They have the Jets, and then they have a bye week. I really think they're going to beat the Jets. Part of the reason is they're traveling overseas. Now, it's a little bit tougher on Minnesota than New York because of proximity, but not really. I mean, that's about the only thing the Jets have going for them. I mentioned before, having a tough defense could end up being tough for the Minnesota Vikings, but there's reports coming out right now of Aaron Rodgers saying he's feeling pretty banged up. He's not feeling great. The Vikings team I watched looked pretty fresh. They looked healthy, ready, raring to go. And so again, when you think about the Minnesota Vikings and being ready, disciplined, prepared, compared to the Jets, who are very volatile, very up and down, a lot of drama going on behind the scenes. Already we've got that funny thing about apparently their offensive line jumped off sides a bunch of times because of Aaron Rodgers' cadence. He caught his own offensive line a ton of times. And their head coach, who can't do anything right and is, you want to talk about a fake tough guy, this guy is the biggest, people pleaser, nice guy, teammate's best friend type of coach, maybe in the NFL. He comes out and says, well, maybe we need to dial back the cadence. And they asked Aaron Rodgers about it, and he's like, well, that's one way to handle it. Another is to simply hold guys accountable and say, do your freaking job, which, by the way, Rodgers is right about that. And, of course, Saleh comes around and changes his mind. Like, oh, no, everything Rodgers said was right. Like, Saleh, you're such an idiot. Shut up. God, I swear. Maybe we should just dial back the cadence. Dude, never mind. So I think the Vikings go to 5-0, and then they have a bye. So over the next 2 weeks, I think the Vikings remain undefeated, which kind of sucks. The Lions are ahead of us at 3 wins. They have a bye this week. Now, that's not great for the Vikings or the Lions to have early byes, but the bottom line is they are going to be 3-1 after this week, and then they face the Dallas Cowboys. The way the Cowboys are playing right now, I think they're going to end up being a 4-1 team by the time Week 6 is done. The good news is after that, it's Detroit and Minnesota. So somebody's got to lose. That's good enough for me. Chicago over the next several weeks is looking at Carolina, Jacksonville, and a bye week. I hate to say it, they're not going to lose a game. So I don't see a single team in the NFC North, that is our opponent, losing a game over the next several weeks. The Bears are likely to beat Carolina, and now Carolina does have a new quarterback, so maybe, but I doubt it. Carolina, Jacksonville, who hasn't won a game, and then a bye week. That would put them at 4-2 in Week 7. And the only loss through week 7 is going to be either Minnesota or Detroit when they face each other. In that time, the Packers have the Rams, who are not playing great football, but it's in LA. The Packers struggle on the road, especially when they have to go across the country. So I'm kind of torn on that one. They should win the game, but I don't know. They have the Arizona Cardinals, which is another kind of weird team where they're struggling, but they have shown the ability to be uber talented and scary. Same with the Texans. They're struggling, but we know at their best, if they hit their stride, we're in a lot of trouble. So I feel like we're tiptoeing through here, trying not to awaken anything. If we can catch the Rams and the Cardinals and the Texans still not playing good football, and Arizona and Houston are at home, so that's good. It's very possible, but I don't feel as confident. Part of it is because we don't have a bye, so we're not looking at 2 teams, we're looking at 3. I think it's possible that we would be at 5-2. Now, that would put us ahead of the Bears if we win because they have a bye. If we lose one of those games, which is very, I would say, likely, it's very difficult to win 3 in a row, especially against kind of teams. But that wouldn't put us behind by much because, again, we have 2 wins in the same span that everybody else has 2 wins because of the byes. And also, by the conclusion of Week 7, either Minnesota or Detroit will also have a loss. After that, Week 8, Jacksonville is we're playing at Jacksonville. I know everyone's scared of Florida. I don't fully understand that, but at least it's late October, so it shouldn't be super hot. Then the Packers have Detroit and then a bye week. I think Detroit is probably the most difficult in that stretch. But again, Arizona and Houston, it's kind of a please don't show up. Please still continue. We absolutely need to pay close attention to these teams over the next week or 2 to see how they're performing. I'm hoping Arizona plays a terrible game this upcoming week. Arizona is playing San Francisco. They have 2 tough games. They're on the road against San Francisco and then on the road against the Packers. That's a tough stretch. Back-to-back road games, including one that's sort of kind of a little bit far away. And their one win against the Rams, which makes me feel good because it was the Rams, was the last time they really played at a high level. They scored 41. Their defense only allowed 10. Then against the Lions, they only got to 13, and they gave up 20. Last week against Washington, they only scored 14 and gave up 42. So they are spiraling wildly, and as much as I don't like the 49ers, I hope they beat the living crap out of Arizona, because that's not only good for us in terms of good Arizona still sucks, but also I want them to be a little battered by the time they have to fly out to Green Bay. But if we can somehow make it to our bye week in Week 10, only losing 1 game, that's going to be awesome. That'll put us at 6-3. It's a pretty good spot as we go through the stretch. And again, we're looking for 4 wins down the stretch to get to 10. 9 could possibly get us in. I think 10 is more or less automatic. Miami at this point is basically automatic. We have 2 Chicago Bears games. I can't promise they're automatic, but I feel confident about them so far. Seattle is a decent chance of winning. Saints are a decent chance of winning. And we got the Vikings again, Detroit again, and of course San Francisco, which I don't feel great about, but I see no reason why. And if you can't get 4 wins out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, you don't belong in the playoffs. I don't care how good the opponents are. All right, turning to the injuries now. Don't have a ton of information. We'll find out a little bit more here. Maybe you already found out things. I mean, I'm encouraged that at least from my perspective, I haven't heard about Watson being placed on IR, but we'll see when the time comes. The latest that I've been able to see is that, first of all, Matt LaFleur said he expects Watson to be out most likely at least a week or so. I don't know exactly what that means. It's certainly nice-sounding language. It's not pessimistic language. But NFL Network did report on Monday that Watson is expected to be placed on injured reserve, forcing him to miss the next 4 games. Would put him on track to return for a home game against the Detroit Lions in early November. Now, that was countered to somebody that is useless, but according to NFL insider Jordan Schultz, Watson has a mild ankle sprain and is unlikely to land on injured reserve. Now, don't get me wrong, when I see stuff like that, I'm still going to hold on to it and say, please tell me this guy found a single source that is real and true and is reporting some breaking news. But Jordan Schultz is well known as a fake insider that says random things and has a following because he ends up hitting on some stuff and getting some things right, and then when he doesn't, I don't know, he just moves on with his life, I guess. But I'm still in the mode of expecting IR. They may keep him off if they think there's even a slight chance that he comes back, in 3 weeks. or whatever. I don't know. The latest that I have on Devontae Wyatt, I mentioned before, right after the game, he was seen with a boot on his foot as well as crutches. I believe it was an ankle injury. He mentioned that on Monday he would have an MRI done to assess the extent of the injury. He did say he was able to put a real little bit of weight on his ankle. In other words, I can kind of put some weight on it, but not much. Probably not a great sign. Now, it ain't all anti-Packers news here as far as fate is concerned. The Rams are also really struggling, especially with wide receivers. The Rams said, I see your Christian Watson, I'll raise you Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Both of them are already not, ruled out for the game against the Green Bay Packers. Puka because he's on IR. Cooper Kupp, he's got an ankle injury. I don't believe he's on IR, but this is his third consecutive missed game, and he's already been ruled out. So that's pretty rough, man. I mean, Puka Nacua is a good football player. Cooper Kupp, obviously a valuable part of that team. When you remove both of those guys, you maybe start to understand why things are not going very well. For example, the number one, I tell you what, let's do an exercise. These are fun once in a while. Let's do an exercise. No Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua. First of all, can you name a single other wide receiver? And if so, here's what I'm going to say. Who is the most targeted wide receiver for the Rams last week against the Bears? Ready? If you want to pause it, go ahead. The answer is Jordan Whittington. Jordan Whittington. Never heard of the guy. I'll just, I'm probably not supposed to say that. I got a podcast. I'm a super smart guy. I know stuff and you're stupid and I'm not. Congrats if you know him. I have no freaking idea who that is. Oh, actually, probably part of the reason. He is a rookie 6th round receiver. So, there you go. The draft people remember him. I don't. He's actually out of Texas. It's interesting enough. The one that you're more likely to remember is Tutu Atwell. He was their leading receiver in terms of yards, 4 receptions, 82 yards, but 0 touchdowns across the board. I mean, this is a rough situation. You're looking at Jordan Whittington, Tutu Atwell, and Demarcus Robinson as their top receivers. Also add in, I guess, Tyler Johnson. The only other targeted people were tight end Colby Parkinson and running back Kyron Williams, right? No. Yeah, Kyron Williams. That's just the offensive side. They've also got some concerns on the defensive side, including especially their secondary. The Rams' pass defense, which ranks 31st in opponent passer rating and 32nd in yards per attempt, has got multiple injuries. Cornerback Darius Williams is on IR with a hamstring injury, although there's a chance he could return, I believe, in this game. Cornerback Darian Kendrick is on IR with a knee injury. Safety John Johnson III is on IR with a shoulder injury. So Darius Williams as well as tackle Laurel Murchison could return, but it's just a very beat up and depleted team. We'll get more into the Rams as we get closer to the game, but those are pretty significant. All right, why don't we take a break here? There's a bunch of stuff coming across the wire. We got to talk about Davante Adams because that's pretty big news right now. Davante apparently wants out, and can't be too surprised. I know, again, there is his desire to stay on the West Coast close to his team. He wanted to be a Raider because it was his childhood thing, but he's just freaking tired of being there. I think in his head it was going to be a cooler situation than it ended up being. But anyways, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. So the Davante thing, I mean, we've been hearing rumors about this for a while, but this is bigger than what we've been hearing before. It's not just, could he, would he, should he. We've got Ian Rappaport. We've got Mike Garafolo. We got Tashawn Reed, who is a senior writer for The Athletic, who covers the Raiders and the NFL. He has now confirmed that Davante Adams has actually requested a trade. Not that he's disgruntled, not that he's thinking about it, not that he went to the team and said, I want out. He goes on to say the timing was a surprise. The Raiders, 2-2, are coming off a win, but this has been brewing for a while. Adam wants to win, and Las Vegas is just 16-22 since he arrived. It is a little odd. It's almost like he was positive the team was going to suck and was like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait until we're 0-4, and then I'm going to say I want out. And then they end up winning a game. They're 2-1 or 1-2, and he's like, all right, well, if we go to 1-3, I'm going to tell them, and then they end up winning the game. Screw it. I don't care. I'm telling them, because if we win another game, then we got a winning streak here, and I'm not doing this. It's like he had his mind made up already. The question is, where is he going to go? Obviously, I shouldn't say this is, from what I've seen so far, not a lot of Packer fans are massively interested. Some of them very much so. I think you could easily use the Christian Watson injury as an excuse. You can look at the obvious potential of the guy. I think the other consideration would be his contract, which I'll get into in a second. But, look, let's not forget, as much as it seems unlikely with the whole David Bakhtiari thing and that they just don't want him back, they tried to get Davante. They tried to pay him money, and he said no. They offered more money than the Raiders. He just said no. Now, does he want to go back to Green Bay? You could say no, but at the same time, remember, he left because Rodgers, a lot of different reasons, but he knew Rodgers was on the way out, and he didn't want to stick around for what he thought was going to be a disastrous thing. Now he's looking at Green Bay, and it's like, that dude can play. Just saying. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or it's going to happen. I'm just saying there's a lot of times we say, should there be a reunion? And there's just never going to be one because one or both of the parties is not interested. I don't know that would be the case here. I do think the Packers would be less interested just because, listen, they tried to keep him. It didn't work. We now have this situation. Maybe if he'd be willing to do a short-term thing, but I doubt it because Davante's still Davante. Anyways, some of the options that have come up for Davante Adams, some of the less likely things. Number one, the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the most obvious team aside from the fact where it's a division rival and the Raiders would never consider it. Chiefs desperately need wide receiver. They're losing everybody, and the team is not really coming together very well. The record looks fine, but they're struggling. They would love to have him. There's no way, I don't think the Raiders would ever give Davante to the Chiefs. 49ers have come up. I'll just put these in the same pile, the 49ers and the Bills. The problem is the Bills do make more sense, but in both cases, remember, the 49ers just struggled to pay Brandon Ayuk. They have a lot of money tied up in their guys. Their running back, their wide receivers, their tight end. They can't afford to throw more money at this. They're good as they are. They don't need Davante. The Buffalo Bills absolutely could use a replacement for Stephon Diggs, but they got rid of Stephon Diggs in part because they had a massive financial issue that they tried to reconcile. I don't know that they have the finances, and if they did, I think that Stephon Diggs, despite whatever internal problems he was causing, I think he'd still be on the team. Now, some of the more likely, obviously the New York Jets are on the list. Aaron Rodgers would push very, very hard to get Davante in, and that team, if it's feasible, will do anything in their power to bend over backwards to give Rodgers what he wants, and I guarantee he wants Davante. It's not a super hard sales pitch. I think the Packers are a good-looking team, the Jets are a good-looking, appealing team. Davante could be back with Rodgers. Now, if Davante's looking more long-term, he might look at that and go, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to hitch my wagon to Rodgers for 1 or maybe 2 more years and then be stuck with the frickin' Jets, unless I'm just looking for 1 more year or 2 more years. I don't know. That would be the one downside, but you go to the Jets, you got a defense, you've got a quarterback, you've got another wide receiver on the other side. It's not a terrible situation to be in. The Steelers have been mentioned, although I doubt it. They do have a good record. They got a very well-liked coach. As far as coaches go with, respected among players, I think Tomlin is one of the most respected guys. Players absolutely love the guy. But how far are you really going with Justin Fields and or Russell Wilson? I just don't think it's very far. He's setting himself up for a disaster. The other option that I think could use some serious consideration is the Washington Commanders. It's an NFC team, so the Raiders would not care. As much as it seemed like it would have been a stupid thing not too long ago, Washington now has potentially a superstar quarterback. The guy has lit up the NFL over the last 2 weeks. They've got Terry McLaurin, who's a decent wide receiver, but I think Adams would slot in immediately as the number 1 with Terry McLaurin as a compliment. And then, on top of that, what would be hilarious is they're going to come in and beat the crap out of Dallas. They're going to beat the crap out of the Giants, and they had a good chance of beating up on the Eagles as well. They could actually win the division and slide into the playoffs and have some success. And remember, Washington doesn't have any talent, so I'm not even going to check their finances. If they can't afford Davante, they're stupid. You're not paying a quarterback. You're not paying any. You just gave everybody away. All your defensive linemen you gave away. Remember, you gave one to the 49ers and one to the Bears, I think. I don't know where they are now, but you have to have money. Then there's a question of, would he come back just to stick it to the Packers? I doubt it, because the Packers didn't let him go. They did fight for him. I think he was upset when he wanted a contract early and they wouldn't give it to him. It's part of the reason he was kind of bitter and decided to move on. They offered him like a really low contract or something, and it kind of ticked him off. Maybe he would come back and do that, but it's not going to be the Bears. They're not going to go out and get a fourth wide receiver. So that's good, and I don't know if he would. The Lions and Vikings are certainly more interesting. The Vikings would be weird because they're in a really weird situation as far as what is even their long-term situation at quarterback. If it were me, excluding, all other situations, if he were to go back to the NFC North, to stick it to the Packers, or just because, I feel like the Lions would kind of make the most sense. Most stable quarterback situation, maybe most stable franchise. As far as just kind of knowing what they are and where they're going, Packers, Lions are probably the two most. So that'd probably be it, but I don't think so. According to Adam Schefter, the Raiders are contacting teams right now saying they maybe were interested. Maybe we would consider something if. I mean, that's obviously, they know they're going to have to trade him. But they're saying that trading wide receiver would need to be a package that would include a second-round pick and additional compensation. So that's the other thing. You would need to look at Davante's contract. You would need to look at what you'd have to give up to the team, second-round plus. So is it worth it would be the question. Looking at the contracts, a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, pull up the old spot track here. One of the immediate issues that comes up is the way that they structured his contract, because although the guarantees are starting to run out, they put all the money in the base salary. So if somebody takes on the contract, even if everything else dried up, like their signing bonus and all that other stuff, they're still looking at a contract that is $35.6 million in 2025. That's just the base salary, and $35.6 million in 2026. So the contract itself sucks. So I don't think there's first of all, the Raiders, I don't think are going to get the second round pick that they're asking for. They're coming in high, but Davante's getting older and it's an expensive contract. So a team would have to be willing to renegotiate with Davante, which is just another layer of issues. How many teams can even afford him, right? 49ers, in my opinion, are basically out, as much as I think Davante would love to go there. It's near his family in Palo Alto, but they just paid Ayuk. Then on top of that, how many want to negotiate with Davante? You got teams like the Steelers and whatnot, but does he want to go there? Maybe the Saints with his buddy Carr. I don't know. But then on top of it, they'd have to come down to an agreement on the contract. And, I mean, he's got a pretty good contract, but apparently he wants to part with it. I don't know. Really depends how much people want to pay Davante. I mean, he's still only 31. It's not like he's 35, but, I mean, you have to start taking into account how many years is he going to be able to give you. I think the decline has already started. But whatever. I have a feeling that's somebody else's problem. I have a feeling. I don't know. Maybe it's our problem. Some other bits of news came kind of flurrying in as, the Davante thing was happening. Lots of teams making some moves, lots of decisions being handed down by the NFL. As far as I know, we didn't have any running backs being fined for running the football this week, so that's a plus. They did suspend Browns rookie defensive tackle Mike Hall Jr. 5 games without pay for violating a personal conduct policy. In addition, they also decided to suspend Von Miller 4 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. I don't know what that's about. I'm sure there's details. I don't care enough, but that's a pretty big blow, especially for the Buffalo Bills, to lose Von Miller. Another story came down from the Jets. So we've had a couple different things happening. Rodgers, number one, feeling banged up was one. It's not a funny update, but it was an update. There was the update about their coach being incompetent. Here's another one. This is from Rich Cimini. Interesting comments from Garrett Wilson on Bart and Hahn. Obviously, he's frustrated by his slow start on the Jets' offense. Quote, I don't think we do a lot of different stuff, to be honest. I watch football on Sundays, and I see a lot of teams mix it up and stuff like that. I don't think we do that. I think we know our identity. It's just about going out and executing it or figuring out if it's going to work. I don't think we're trying a lot of different things. I know personally my route tree hasn't been what it has been the last 2 years as far as the stuff I've been running. It's just about figuring out if it's the right identity and whether it's going to win games. So he's annoyed with how bland their offense is. Now, there's two possible ways you could take this. Number one is Nathaniel Hackett. There's a bunch of comments about him. Slam Central Station says, I don't even want to know what that means, saying Nathaniel Hackett is a dunce in the nicest way possible. Forever Curse says he's cooking, this offense has no complexity. He's right, everyone but the Jets know Hackett is the worst play caller in the league. Watching Detroit last night, he ain't wrong. Here's the other thing, though. This sounds a lot like what Packers fans were annoyed with for years, including prior to Jordan Love taking over the offense. He's talking specifically about this year compared to even last year. Hackett was there last year. He said, my route tree hasn't been what it has been the last 2 years. Rodgers likes playing a certain way, and it goes back to the McCarthy era. It's not to say there aren't a couple, tidbits here and there of things that happened under Matt LaFleur or with Matt LaFleur, some of the concepts or whatever, maybe. But generally speaking, he doesn't like that stuff. He wants to get everybody lined up, read the defense, call the routes, because he's going to read the defense and say, okay, this is what you're doing. We're going to call this route combination to beat that defense. You can't have guys running all over the place, doing crazy stuff behind the line of scrimmage when Rodgers is like, no, get out there, stand there, and I'm going to tell you what route to run in a minute. Give me a second here. Anyways, the Jets continue to be a nightmare, which on one hand is slightly funny, on the other hand is very annoying because I need them to beat the Vikings. And I'm becoming very skeptical that they're going to be able to. The constant imploding, the constant news cycle surrounding the just, dissatisfaction by everybody, with everybody, by everybody, with everybody. All right, let's take a final break here. When we come back, the Packers brought in some people to work out, and yes, that includes kickers. In fact, of the 4 people listed, 2 of them are kickers. So I want to look at some of the guys that they brought in and see what we can glean. We'll be right back. All right, so 4 people worked out for the Green Bay Packers. The kickers are the most interesting, so we're not going to start with that. First of all, quarterback Gavin Hardison, rookie quarterback out of UTEP, undrafted and spent training camp with the Miami Dolphins. Gavin is 6'3", 215 pounds. He spent 5 years at UTEP. Last year, he only played in what looks like 5 games. In those 5 games, 73 completions for 947 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. You know who this immediately reminds me of? Reminds me of Tim Boyle. He's a small school quarterback out of Eastern Kentucky. He's a big dude, 6'4", 232. He's got 4 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Sounds like a Packers backup quarterback. Anyways, they also worked out wide receiver. Let me see if I can get this right. Lydiatrick Griffin, rookie wide receiver and return specialist from Mississippi State. Spent time with the Las Vegas Raiders and the Cleveland Browns. Interestingly, similar to Gavin Hardison, he didn't really have any time in the preseason. Gavin did not play in the preseason whatsoever, and Griffin didn't either, aside from special teams. So he didn't get any wide receiver reps, but when he was with the Raiders, he spent some time in preseason weeks 2 and 3 as a returner. No punt returns, just kickoff returns. His 3 returns went for 90 yards. His longest return was 32 yards. Yards per attempt is 30, which is basically what you're looking for in terms of being an average kind of fella. Bottom line, it wasn't anything necessarily spectacular. He's 5'10", 180 pounds, by the way. So I can't imagine he would be anything other than a pure special teamer. Seems like that's kind of what they're going after here. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. He played for Mississippi State for 4 years. His grades in his final year weren't terrible, 72 overall, 50 receptions, 659 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But again, smaller guy, slot guy. Even in college, I mean, he was a slot guy, not massively productive, didn't grade out super well. And now he's making a jump into the pros. He didn't even get a single wide receiver snap. So I understand the Packers want to get their hands on him. I'm sure they're trying some special team stuff, and we'll see how that goes. But on to what matters the most, the kickers. Let's start with Chad Ryland. So Chad has been around since 2023. He was actually a 4th-round pick by the Patriots, so it's kind of a big deal. You can kind of go two ways with it. First of all, he's a 4th-round pick, so it's kind of a big deal. Obviously, he was pretty talented in college. However, to give up on a 4th-round pick that easily as the Patriots did speaks to maybe how bad he was. Just so you know, he had a 38 PFF grade in 2023 with the Patriots. He was 24 of 25 on his extra points, but he was just 64% on his field goals. That's not good. He was 4 for 4 inside the 20-yard range. He was 5 of 7 inside the 30-yard range, 5 of 10 in the 40-yard range, 2 of 4 in the 50-yard range. That's terrible, and it reminds me very much of the guy we have now. As long as it's under 30, he's automatic, which is very few of the kicks. He makes most, but not all. I mean, he's not even at 75% on the 30-yard range. You're kind of hoping for like 95% to 100% in that range, and then 50% from the 40s? Come on, dog. I mean, I understand wanting to try him out. If we go this route, I'm going to be super nervous. In college, he spent 4 years at Eastern Michigan. His final year, so he was not great for 3 years. His final year, he got an 87.7 grade, 100% of his extra points, and was 17 of 20 on his field goals, which seems pretty good, but it's not a lot of attempts. It's just 20 attempts. He was 80% from the 30-yard range, 80% from the 40-yard range, and was 2 for 2 on his 50-yarders. Then he goes to Maryland in 2022, gets an 87 grade again, 38 of 39 of his extra points, so he's 97%. He was 80% for his field goals. Even that is kind of like, it's okay, I guess. 16 of 20. Again, perfect inside of the 20-yard range. He was perfect inside of the 30-yard range. 5 of 6 from the 40s, 3 of 6 from the 50s. I don't know why he was worth a 4th-round pick. He must have a frickin' cannon for a leg or something. I don't know what it is. That's not that great, in my opinion. I don't know. Whatever. Finally, they worked out kicker Lucas Havrisik. Pretty sure that's how you say it. I don't know. He is from Arizona Wildcats. He was an undrafted free agent back in 2022. He was with the Colts in 2023, and in the preseason, he was 3 of 4 on extra points, 2 of 2 on field goals. 2024 with Cleveland, he was 3 for 3 on extra points, 1 of 1 for field goals, so he has not had an extensive amount of time doing anything. He was in the regular season, though, the kicker for the LA Rams in 2023, and it didn't go well. 39.6 grade. He was only 86% on his extra points, 19 of 22, and he was 75% on field goals, 15 of 20. He was 100% from the 20 and 30-yard ranges, 2 of 6 in the 40-yard range, and 2 of 3 in the 50-yard range. I hate to just be the guy that's like, just call Mason Crosby, because I know Mason's not what he was, but he's got to be better than this. I don't know what we're doing. We're trying to find these, trying to be too smart here. The diamond in the rough thing. Like, I think you missed something. I watched him in college. He was really good. Yeah, I watched a guy in the pros that was decent, and you should call him. Doesn't have to be Mason. Could be any. There's like 7 of them just floating out there. They used to have jobs, and now they don't because they're old, and they're probably expensive, and they're not worth the money, but I don't give a crap. In college, he was at Arizona for 5 years. His highest grade was an 83. That was his rookie year. Then it was 60, 50, 60, and then 70 in his final year, although he didn't do much, and it wasn't great when he did. He was 3 for 3 for extra points, 19 of 14 for field goals, so 64%, which is not great. He hit all the 20s, 2 of 3 from the 30s, which is not good. 2 of 4 from the 40s, which is not good. 2 of 4 from the 50s, which isn't great also. So I don't know. I have no freaking idea. I guess they were just in town, and the Packers were like, hey, you want to swing by, kick a few balls, see what's going on? I don't know. I'm guessing everyone's going to be excited if we get a new kicker. Like, yeah, we replaced him. It's like, I think this is going to suck a little bit, but we'll see how she goes. I don't know. Whatever, at least they're trying. I give them A for effort, I guess. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.